Princess Alara stood by the window of her grand chamber, gazing out at the vast landscape of her home planet, Zentara. The view was breathtaking. Endless forests and shimmering cities that stretched across the horizon, all under a sky painted with two suns. Her people had thrived for centuries, enjoying peace and prosperity. Yet there was an unsettling weight on her shoulders. The ancient prophecy had haunted her since she was a child. She had heard it whispered in the halls of the palace, studied in her teachings, and even told as bedtime stories. It spoke of a human warrior who would come to her planet and save her people from a coming darkness. But there was one problem. Humans were nothing more than a primitive species, far from the advanced civilization of Zentara. How could such a warrior truly be the one to change everything? She had always dismissed it as a myth, a tale of the past meant to inspire hope but not taken seriously. Yet, as the years passed, more signs pointed toward its truth. Strange occurrences, mysterious messages, and the growing unrest in the empire had made the prophecy feel closer to reality. Her advisors spoke of a looming threat, and the Zentrix people were starting to grow anxious. "Your Highness," came the soft voice of Advisor Jaren as he entered the room. His respectful tone broke her thoughts, but Alara could still feel the unease gnawing at her. "The council is waiting for you in the throne room. They are eager to hear your response regarding the human." Alara turned, meeting Jaren's gaze with a mixture of frustration and confusion. "The human?" she repeated, almost bitterly. "I've already told you, Jaren. There's no way some human warrior is going to save us. This prophecy is nothing but a fairy tale. The Zentrix are strong. We have our technology, our knowledge. Why rely on some stranger?" Jaren bowed his head, clearly hesitant. "I understand, Your Highness, but strange things have been happening across the galaxy. There are reports of humans gathering in numbers, many speaking of your arrival. Some even claim that they have already identified their champion, the one they call Max." Alara's heart skipped a beat at the mention of the name. Max. She had heard rumors of this warrior, but to her, it was all just talk. What could this man do that her people couldn't do for themselves? "What is this Max supposed to be?" she asked, her voice more curious than annoyed now. "Some kind of hero." Jaren hesitated before answering. "The legend speaks of him being a skilled fighter, one who could defeat even the strongest warriors. But there's more. It is said that he is connected to you, Your Highness, in a way that no one can explain." Alara's brow furrowed. "Connected to me?" Jaren nodded. "There are those who believe that he is your true husband, sent by the stars to unite with you, to bring balance to your world." Princess Alara stared at Jaren, her mind racing. A husband. The prophecy had spoken of the human warrior, but she had never imagined this. Could this be true? Could a human really be her destined partner? Her heart was heavy with doubt. How could this be the answer to saving her people? But the uncertainty lingered in her mind as the whispers of fate seemed to grow louder. The day was drawing to a close when Alara entered the throne room. The council was already assembled, their faces filled with anxious anticipation. The room, with its high ceilings and towering stone pillars, seemed to echo with the weight of their expectations. Alara sat at the head of the table, her gaze sweeping over the group of advisors, generals, and council members who awaited her response. "I trust you all understand the importance of today's meeting?" Alara asked, her voice steady, though the uncertainty still lingered in her heart. The tension in the room was palpable. One of the council members, Saenor, a wise elder, spoke first. "Your Highness, we have gathered the information on the human warrior, Max. The prophecy is clear, and many of our people believe that his arrival will signal the beginning of a new era for the Zentrix. We must prepare ourselves." Alara folded her hands, leaning forward. "But what does this truly mean? This Max, a human. How could someone from such a primitive species have any bearing on the future of our people?" Saenor paused before answering. "We may not understand the prophecy completely, but the signs are there. There are stories from the human race of a hero who will bring peace, someone whose strength and spirit are unmatched. It is said that he is linked to you, Your Highness." Alara frowned. The connection to her, the part that made her blood run cold. How is it possible that this human is connected to me? Could it really be true that I am meant to join with him? There was a murmur in the room. The idea seemed absurd, but Alara could sense that her advisors weren't just humoring her. They believed in the prophecy, and their eyes were full of conviction. This made her uneasy. "Perhaps this Max is the answer we have been searching for," said General Corian, a young officer who had been leading the defense of the Zentrix Empire. "But there is more we need to know. We cannot wait any longer. If he is truly the one meant to unite with you, Your Highness, we must find him." Alara's thoughts raced. Could she trust this prophecy? Was this human warrior truly the key to saving her people? Could he be the partner that fate had chosen for her? "I have already told you," Alara said, standing up abruptly. "This is nonsense. I've fought for my people all my life. Why would I need a human warrior to do what we should be able to do ourselves?" "Your Highness," Senor interrupted gently, "we must consider the possibility that we are missing something. The prophecy speaks not just of strength, but of unity. The union of a human and a Zentrix could bring the balance we need." Alara was quiet for a long moment, her mind a whirlwind of doubts. She had never thought of herself as someone who would rely on a stranger, let alone someone from a far-off planet. But the thought that her destiny, her future, might be entwined with this human warrior, Max, left her with no easy answers. Suddenly, the doors to the throne room creaked open. A messenger entered, his face grim. "Your Highness, we have received word. The human warrior, Max, is approaching our planet." Alara's heart skipped a beat. She felt a strange pull in her chest. This was real. This man, this warrior, was coming. And soon, their paths would cross. The time to face her fate had arrived. The next few days were filled with anticipation and preparation. The council had worked tirelessly to make sure everything was ready for the arrival of Max, the human warrior. Alara couldn't help but feel a sense of dread mixed with curiosity. The prophecy had never felt more real. Soon, the fate of her people and her own future would be decided. She spent those days in her chambers, trying to prepare herself for what was to come. Her mind raced with thoughts of the human warrior. What would he be like? Would he be strong enough to live up to the prophecy? Would he even accept the role that destiny had given him? As the days passed, news arrived that Max was getting closer, and soon he would land on Zentera. The royal palace was filled with a sense of tension. The servants were busy preparing the throne room for the meeting. The warriors were placed on high alert, and the council members gathered to discuss what would happen next. Alara couldn't sit still any longer. The uncertainty of the situation was gnawing at her. She had heard of the strength of humans, their courage, their determination, but she couldn't yet understand how one of them could fulfill the prophecy that had been part of her life for so long. "I should meet him," Alara decided aloud, standing up from her throne. "I need to see for myself what this human warrior is all about." Her advisors looked at her with surprise, but none of them protested. "Are you sure, Your Highness?" one of them asked, his voice filled with concern. "It is customary for you to stay in the palace while the preparations are made." Alara didn't care about tradition. "This is not about tradition. I need to know if this prophecy is true. I will not sit idly by while my people are at risk." And so, with a quiet but firm resolve, Alara made her way to the landing pad where Max's ship would land. The area was guarded by the best of the Zentrix warriors, and the ground was covered with shimmering gold dust, a sacred part of their planet. As she stood there, looking up at the vast sky, she couldn't help but wonder what her life would be like if Max was truly the one to save her people. The moment she heard the hum of the ship's engines, her heart skipped a beat. The ship, a sleek and advanced human craft, descended gracefully. It landed with a soft thud, and the doors opened. The dust around it swirled as a tall figure emerged from the ship. Max. He was everything the prophecy had promised and more. He had a powerful presence, but it was his eyes that struck Alara the most. They were filled with determination, yet also a kindness that made her feel an unexpected connection. Max took a few steps forward, his eyes meeting hers. There was a moment of silence between them. The air felt thick with anticipation. "Your Highness," Max spoke, his voice deep and respectful, but there was an unspoken question in his gaze. "I've heard of the prophecy, but I never imagined it would lead me here, to you." Alara's heart raced. She had been prepared to question him, to test whether he was truly the warrior of the prophecy. But now, standing before him, she couldn't deny the strange pull she felt. "Max," she said softly, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I don't know what to believe anymore. But if you are the one the prophecy speaks of, we must work together." Max nodded slowly, his expression serious. "I didn't come here to be a hero. I came because I believe in what you stand for, in what we can build together. If the prophecy is real, then I'm here to help, in whatever way I can." For the first time, Alara felt a flicker of hope. She didn't know where this path would lead, but standing here, with Max before her, she felt as though something had changed. Perhaps fate had brought them together, but now it was up to them to decide what would come next. The days after Max's arrival passed in a blur. Alara and Max spent time getting to know each other, but the weight of the prophecy still hung heavily over them. The Zentorix Empire was on the brink of war, and their people looked to Alara for guidance. She knew the human warrior might be the key to everything, but she still struggled to understand how someone from a far-off primitive world could possibly help save her people. As Alara stood on the balcony of the palace one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky with colors of red and gold, Max approached quietly. He had been working with the generals to strategize for the impending conflict, but he had become a familiar presence in her life. Alara turned to him, her eyes thoughtful. "Max, tell me more about your world. What makes humans so different from the Zentorix?" Max smiled, stepping closer to her. "We're not all that different," he said, his voice steady. "We fight, we struggle, we love, and we survive. We have our flaws, but we also have strength in places you wouldn't expect. The thing about humans is we fight for each other. We don't abandon our own, no matter what." His words struck Alara deeply. She had heard about human resilience, how they survived against all odds, how they fought for their beliefs. But it was still hard to believe that the strength Max spoke of could help her empire. She had lived a life of luxury, of power and responsibility. She had never known a struggle like Max had described. "I don't understand," Alara said softly. "How can your strength help my people? We are a highly advanced civilization. We have technology, weapons, and armies. What can a single human warrior do against the forces threatening our planet?" Max's expression softened, and he stepped closer, taking her hand gently. "It's not just about technology or weapons," he said, his voice calm but firm. "It's about unity. The prophecy spoke of a union, Alara, and I believe it's not just about us fighting side by side. It's about bringing your people and mine together. We can stand together and fight for something bigger than ourselves. It's not about having the strongest army. It's about the strength we find in each other." Alara looked down at their joined hands, her thoughts swirling. She had spent her whole life thinking of strength in terms of power, military might, advanced technology, and grand strategies. But now Max was showing her a different kind of strength, a strength born from unity, from connection, from trust. "I want to believe you," Alara said quietly, her heart heavy with doubt. "I want to believe that we can win, that we can save Zentorix. But can we really unite our people with humans? Can we really face this enemy together?" Max's eyes never left hers. "We don't have to do it alone. Together, we are stronger than we are apart. If we work together, we can overcome anything." Alara's heart fluttered at his words. For the first time, she felt a spark of hope. Maybe the prophecy wasn't just about the human warrior coming to save them. Maybe it was about the two of them, about their bond, and the power they could bring by uniting their worlds. "You're right," she said softly. "Maybe we don't need to fight alone. Maybe together we can make this work." Max smiled, his gaze warm. "We will. I believe in us." And for the first time, Alara believed it too. They had a long road ahead, full of challenges, but with Max by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. The fate of Zentera and their future was in their hands now. The time for action had come. Alara stood at the helm of the Zenterix palace, watching the horizon where the enemy fleet was slowly approaching. The air was thick with tension. The council had assembled, preparing for the battle that would decide the fate of her people, but Alara's thoughts were elsewhere. She glanced at Max, who was standing beside her. He was dressed in the uniform of a human warrior, simple but effective, with a long coat and a stern expression. His eyes were filled with determination, and his presence was reassuring. "I never imagined this," Alara said softly, her voice carrying the weight of the past few days. "The fate of my people resting on the shoulders of a single human." Max turned his gaze toward her, his expression firm yet warm. "It's not just me, Alara. It's all of us. The prophecy didn't just say one person would save your world. It said two would come together. You and me. Your people and mine. We're stronger together." Alara felt a strange flutter in her chest at his words. Max had been right from the start. She had resisted the idea of a human warrior being the key to saving her planet. But now, standing beside him, she couldn't deny the truth. Their unity, her people and his, was their greatest strength. "Is it really possible?" Alara asked, more to herself than to Max. "Can we truly unite our people with the humans?" Max reached out, taking her hand gently. "I believe we can. We're not so different, you and me. I've seen what your people are capable of. They are strong. They just need someone to show them that strength comes from more than just power. It comes from unity." Alara nodded, his words sinking in. The idea had always seemed impossible, but now, with Max by her side, she saw a way forward. She had always thought of strength in terms of military might, technology, and conquest. But Max had shown her that true strength came from something deeper: trust, understanding, and cooperation. The sounds of the approaching enemy fleet echoed through the palace, bringing her back to the present. She turned to Max, her eyes filled with resolve. "Let's do this," she said, her voice steady with the determination she had never felt before. Max gave her a reassuring smile. Together. The battle was fierce, and the stakes were higher than Alara had ever imagined. But as the enemy forces descended upon the Zenterix Empire, Alara saw something incredible unfold. Her people, who had once been divided and hesitant to embrace the humans, began to fight alongside them. The humans, under Max's leadership, showed the Zenterix warriors the power of unity. They fought with honor and courage, side by side, as one force, united. Alara stood at the heart of the battle, leading her people alongside Max. She had never felt such a connection to her own people, or to the humans who fought beside her. For the first time, she understood what the prophecy had meant. The union of the two worlds had created an unbreakable strength. The battle raged on, but Alara's heart swelled with pride as she saw her people fighting for something more than just survival. They were fighting for a future, for unity, for peace, and they were winning. As the last of the enemy forces retreated, Alara and Max stood together, their hands still clasped. They had done it. Together, they had saved her planet. And in that victory, they had found something even more important: the promise of a future where both their worlds could thrive, side by side. The day after the battle, Zentera was finally at peace. The enemy forces had retreated, and the planet was safe once again. Alara stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the city. The streets were filled with her people, celebrating their victory. The skies above were clear, and for the first time in a long while, Alara felt a sense of hope for the future. Beside her, Max stood silently, watching the crowd below. The sounds of laughter and cheering reached their ears, but neither of them spoke for a moment. It had been a long, hard fight, but it was over, and they had won. Together. "Did you ever think we would get to this point?" Alara asked, her voice soft, but filled with awe. Max turned to her, his expression calm but filled with emotion. "Honestly, no. I didn't think we could ever get your people to fight alongside humans, but I knew that if we united, if we worked together, we could do anything." Alara smiled, her heart full of gratitude. She had never expected this kind of connection, this bond, with someone from a completely different world. Max had shown her the true meaning of strength, of unity. She had always thought she had to do everything alone, but now she realized that her people's strength came from togetherness, from trusting each other, from fighting for each other. "I owe you everything," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've shown me something I didn't know was possible. You've given me hope for my people, for our future." Max stepped closer to her, his hand gently touching hers. "We did this together, Alara. We both fought for it. This is your victory, too." She looked down at their intertwined hands, the connection between them more powerful than words could express. The prophecy had come true, not because of fate, but because they had chosen to unite their worlds, to face their challenges side by side. And now, their bond was stronger than ever. Alara turned to face him, her violet eyes searching his. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. "We've won, but the future still seems so uncertain." Max smiled softly, his eyes filled with understanding. "Now, we rebuild. We make sure our worlds stay united. We show everyone that this can work, that unity is our greatest strength." Alara nodded, the weight of responsibility resting on her shoulders. But for the first time, she didn't feel alone in carrying it. She had Max by her side, and together they would build a future where humans and Centaurics could thrive together. As they stood there, watching the celebrations unfold below, Alara realized that she wasn't just the princess of her people. She was the queen of a new era, one of unity, of hope, and of love. And with Max beside her, she knew they could face whatever came next. "I'm ready," she said, her voice full of determination. Max squeezed her hand. "So am I." Together, they turned back toward the palace, their hearts full of promise. The journey they had started had only just begun, but Alara was no longer afraid. She had found her partner, her true strength, and with Max by her side, there was no limit to what they could achieve. As the weeks passed, the Centaurix Empire began to transform. The victory over the enemy was not just a military triumph, it was a turning point for the entire empire. With Max by her side, Alara worked tirelessly to rebuild what had been destroyed and to create a future where both humans and Centaurics could live in peace. The once divided people of Zentera began to embrace the union with humans, realizing that together they were stronger. Max's leadership and Alara's unwavering belief in the prophecy helped to bridge the gap between the two worlds. Slowly, the distrust and fear that had once divided them melted away. Alara and Max spent their days working alongside the people, learning from each other and growing stronger together. As the human and Centaurix cultures blended, they discovered new technologies, shared knowledge, and united their strengths. Together, they built cities that were unlike anything either world had seen before, beautiful, efficient, and full of promise. One day, as the sun set over the new city, Alara stood beside Max on a balcony overlooking the vast landscape. The golden light of the evening bathed the city in warmth, and the air was filled with the sounds of peace and prosperity. Alara turned to Max, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I never imagined this," she said, her voice filled with awe. "I thought I would spend my life alone, carrying the weight of my people's hopes and fears. But now, I have you. I have my people. I have a future." Max smiled back, his hand resting gently on hers. "You never were alone, Alara. You just needed someone who believed in you. Someone who believed in the prophecy and the strength of unity. Together, we've made something incredible." Alara gazed out at the horizon, her heart full. It was true. Everything she had thought she knew had changed. The prophecy had not been about power or war. It had been about love, unity, and the strength that could come from joining two worlds that were once so different. "We've made our future," Alara said, her voice soft but full of conviction, "and I wouldn't want to face it with anyone but you." Max leaned closer, his voice full of promise. "And you won't have to." They stood there for a long time, their hands intertwined, as the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon. It wasn't just the end of the day. It was the beginning of a new life, a new world. Together, Alara and Max had forged a future built on love and unity. The prophecy had been fulfilled, but their journey wasn't over. They would continue to build a world where both their people could thrive, side by side. And no matter what challenges came next, they knew they would face them together, stronger than ever. As the stars began to twinkle in the sky above, they knew one thing for sure: the best was yet to come.